Thank you, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Good? Good. So my name is Nakpil, and I'm a character artist at Oculus. Just to give you guys a brief background on myself, in my previous life, I was in my previous life before working in the video game industry. You guys thought I was going to go all metaphysical on you, huh? Before working in the video game industry, I was in the film VFX industry, working at Industrial Light and Magic. There I worked on a lot of films, was lucky enough to work on a lot of films there. Too many to recall, actually, but some of them were the episodes 2 and 3 Star Wars movies, Pirates 1 and 2, Spiderwick Chronicles, War of the Worlds, so a lot of movies, but the proudest one for me that I've taken part at ILM was the last movie that I actually was able to work on there, which was the first Avengers. And I was lucky enough to do the model supervising gig for the character team there, and also was fortunate enough to work on the Hulk, along with many other artists under my team. But it was a big endeavor to bring that character to life. So there was a lot of us for sure. So I was at ILM for about 13 years, and a really long time. So around my 13th year or so, 12th to 13th year, I started kind of feeling, I kind of started missing that feeling of fear in my belly. And I've always attributed that feeling with, progress and learning and all that stuff. Now, keep in mind, ILM, it's not ILM's fault or anything. I think it was just being at one place for that long of a time. I started, looking for ways to kind of stretch myself in different things, like just learning new things and being afraid again. And so I was lucky enough to get a job at Valve, which is a place I've always wanted to work with. And sure enough, they put the fear in my belly, for sure, in a good way. I learned a lot of new things I wouldn't have learned had I stayed in the VFX field. It was just vast learning and just taking a lot of stuff in, and I was really grateful to have done that move. So I was there for about 2 years when I decided to move into VR at Oculus, which brings me here. I'm still pinching myself to this day. Just the thought of working in virtual reality is, as a kid, that's always sort of been the promise being dangled in front of, just people into the sci-fi genre. I never thought it would be something that would occur within my lifetime, and the fact that I'm working in VR, on the cutting edge of VR is still very surreal to me. So this is why I'm here. I'm here to, actually I forgot to, as I was blabbing, just in case, my name's Giovanni Nakpil, but I'm mostly known as Nakpil by my friends, because my last name is very hard to pronounce. So this is some of my personal info here. So the team I work with in Seattle, so we're called the Oculus Rex. So we're a division inside Oculus, mostly consisting of game developers. We're a small team, and the purpose of the creation of our team was at first to create experiences in VR to sort of evangelize the software. 2 years ago when we started, there weren't that many experiences being formed just yet. I was talking to one programmer guy, and he was saying that most of the stuff that you saw back then were sort of programmer art, was what he called it. So our team essentially created a series or a montage of experiences that ended up being called the Oculus Dreamdeck experience. And this actually comes with the final consumer product. If you buy it, you install it. This is one of the the experiences that kicks in, when you're inside the headset. So, and with the Dreamdeck, we pretty much set out to just try and come up with experiences that show the possibilities of the medium, right? Like, so what is it like to? Can you see my mouse? Yeah. So what is it like to stand on top of a skyscraper, looking down, experiencing vertigo? This experience was created by our amazing environment artist R.J. Renola, and he just busted out this environment because we're all excited. We're just building during this time frame. So, and we found that it was very, 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 very effective. It's one of the most effective experiences in Dreamdeck. What is it like to be inside of a realistic environment, a submarine? This was created by an amazing artist by the name of Paul Pepera. I don't know if some of you guys know him, but he just went to town just detailing all these tech parts, like just to stand there looking at all of the way the highlights of the edges glisten and seeing that as if it's a physical object was very, very effective for the viewers. What is it like to be in a polyforest with sort of like a Mario 64 type of a game? So for the character aspect of things, our art director, Kenneth Scott, essentially, he came up with an idea of kind of referencing Spielberg's body of work, like E.T., Jaws, and Jurassic Park, and riffing off of that and creating a set of experiences for the creature team, which is what the team I'm a part of. And so let's focus first on the Moon Alien experience, obviously based on E.T. Now, how many of you guys here have tried VR, any form of, like, wow, okay, so it's a lot of people. So as you guys know, like a flat 2D screen is pretty hard to describe how effective it is being inside this environment. So, and this was playing really slow earlier. I don't know if, yeah, it's still playing slow. I don't know, maybe it's a codec thing, but this was a movie I captured in VR. So this is me wearing the headset, essentially. Let's not waste too much time with this. So, but this is the alien just reacting. He's set up to look at you. It follows your gaze. So, previous to this, there weren't many, if any, creatures that actually did that actually followed your gaze and connected with you through the eyes. And we found that was a very powerful and effective way to immerse people into and fooling them into thinking that there's something in front of you that really there wasn't. So, well, that was not really playing well. Anyway, so I'll just show you guys some of the ZBrush screen grabs here. So with the Moon Alien, this was my first model that I've ever done for Oculus. Very exciting, but also a lot of learning for me. Kenneth had asked me to design, something that looked very ET-ish, something pleasing and easy to kind of connect to, so big eyes, small mouth. So this is some of the screen grabs of the poly paint and sculpt. Also, early on, I was trying to reconcile what to put in the topology versus normal map. So I'll talk more about that later, because that's a very important aspect that I've learned in working in VR, was what to put on the base mesh versus trying to put the bigger forms in normal map, which doesn't quite work as well, but we'll touch on that. The head, some of the grayscale captures. So the second experience was, it's obviously based off of Jurassic Park. It's the Rex experience. Same deal with this movie here. So, pretty much our signature experience, I'd say. Between this and the Vertigo experience, it's the most visceral. People who I've demoed both experiences to, they always just, it's interesting to see someone kind of recoil or change their body language based on something that really isn't there, if you think about it. But you know, I mean, I've had a friend who kind of ran the other way when the Rex started roaring in front of her. So this Rex was modeled and designed by Kenneth Scott, who's an amazing, amazing artist. So this is his high-res mesh, and I had done the topology work for the in-game model. So I've done all the work and baking on that, but the high-res and design and paint was totally Kenneth Scott here. All the detail here. Paul, just let me know if I'm kind of going over or under here. Okay, we're good. All right, so the third experience based on, obviously, Jaws, there's a reason why there's no video for this. It's because it was unfortunately cut. It was, you know, we ran out of time. Dreamdeck was created under a really tight budget. And also, I think it's because it was a bit too intense. The idea that I had for this one, actually, this isn't actually a great white shark, but rather a megalodon, so the size of a Queen Mary. My original pitch was, you know, what if you're a deep-sea diver in search of this megalodon and you see this cone of tuna, a school of tuna just swirling in front of you, and then it suddenly just, you know, they separate, and in front is this thing staring you in the face. Well, you know, that would have been a bit too intense and probably would have caused a lot of heart attacks. So we had to nix that idea. And you know, again, that's one of the things in VR is because you're no longer bound by the borders of a 2D screen. You really have to be respectful about the comfort level of your viewers, right? Like, it's scary enough to see the Rex, you know, seeing the Rex in Jurassic Park roar for the first time, you know, sends every heart's palpitating. Experience that in VR. For some, it's just, it'll make hearts explode, probably. So this is, so pretty much the, you know, with these characters, ZBrush has proven to be instrumental in the speed of their creation. I cannot stress that enough. I mean, again, with the short amount of time we had to do these, not just the creatures, but the environments and all that stuff. For creatures, we really had, I really had to concept out these maquettes, get approval very quickly so that I could hit the ground running in the in-game build. So time was of the essence. And, you know, my style of working has always been leaning more towards the rapid prototype side of things, like, you know, down and dirty, block something out. So I want to share with you guys my process of building something. So let's switch gears here and go to ZBrush here. So pretty much I start everything with a ball. And you know, just as a warning to you guys, I'm not really the type of ZBrush user. I'm not a power user by any means. Like, I only know a handful of tools, but it's the tools that I like and I'm comfortable with. I sound like an old man, by the way, right? That I'm comfortable with, and it gets me by. And there's a reason for that. It's not that, you know, I don't want to learn new things, and I do, but my thought process about this whole thing is I like to mimic, you know, I've always been a fan of clay sculptors, and the more I can mimic clay with my tools, the better. Now, I can always start off with one of the fancier methods like Z-spheres for armatures, but, you know, starting off with a ball, I'm already getting, I mean, a ball is the most organic shape, you know, composed of many curves. So if I go to my Move tool here, hit M, you know, I produce more curves in different configurations, stating the obvious. So the move tool for me is the equivalent to the hand, essentially. This is sort of what I envision, like if a clay sculptor, like say the awesome Pete Koenig, is sculpting in clay. You know, this is a sort of, you know, the hand equivalent of the process, just moving things around. And I like to actually drop the intensity fairly low, only so that there's tension in my with my operation. I think by default, things feel like wet clay, hard to control. So you guys will notice that I would drop the intensity down fairly low with a lot of my my brushes here. So, you know, let's go ahead and create sort of the oops. Testing. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Alrighty, hold on. It's a little loose here. So I'm going to try and make something like a creature, but I kind of want to be spontaneous and not plan much when it comes to this, so we'll see if it ends up looking like something. But my main intent in this part of the talk is to really just show you guys the process of how I go about from a ball to something. So after I've done sort of like a beanbag sort of a form, switch to snake hook to start pulling out my my appendages. So snake hook for me is sort of what I would equate, I mean, it's not really a sculpting metaphor, but you know, when you're drawing big and you have a conte on your hand, you're capturing the gesture, the flow, the line of action. It's a great brush for that, for pulling out limbs versus, you know, like say a move tool. So I love the acceleration you're getting out of this brush. Let's inflate the tips a little bit. So snake hook, pull out a head. Obviously, topology is all whack. So I'm going to go ahead and go to geometry and dynamesh this thing to neutralize the flow of the topology. So let's go ahead and inflate the head just a little bit. So the next couple of brushes I wanted to show you, and it's sort of been my bread and butter brushes throughout my career, is the dam standard brush. And again, lowering the intensity. Now, this brush actually is typically, from what I've seen, is typically used for finer detail work. You know, kind of wrinkly passes and stuff like that. What I actually like to use this brush the most are for bigger form breakups. This is the brush I use for form exploration. So, and I'm already kind of just letting my hand kind of just wander around the surface, searching, always turning the surface, turning the model around. So just with a few marks, kind of following the flow of whatever this nondescript form is, I'm already, you know, both as an additive and a subtractive, I'm already kind of coming up with some interesting ideas that I kind of want to further explore here, right? So big draw size, small intensity, dam standard. That for me is the main power of this brush. And you know, you can translate that into, you know, when you go smaller forms, but for big forms, this standard brush is unbeatable. So clay buildup is the next brush I wanted to show you guys. Knocking it down. This brush I actually like to hover between 5 to 8. So let's go with 5. So what I'm doing now is, this is the equivalent of, say, taking dabs of clay and building up your, the surface that you've already gotten there. Just slow build up, knocking it down with a smooth, and building it up again. So that's my process for this part, is using the clay buildup to lay my marks, in this case, accenting the edge here, and then running a smooth, and doing rinse and repeat, essentially doing it over again. So, as you notice, that's sort of the way to build up good form. And as I'm doing that, I'm always trying to constantly analyze the cross-section of what I'm doing. I don't just ever, okay, make a mark, okay, move on. I make a mark, let's subdivide this. Make a mark, smooth, analyze if that mark is making or breaking the surface. And then I move on. So I get fairly anal about this part of the process. Working big forms first, I'm not really concerning myself with the filigree of the surface, but rather just what are the forms that read right now, So, I keep doing that until I get to something, but at a certain point, the topology of the Dynamesh will fight me. So what I do is I duplicate. So I duplicated the mesh, so I selected the duplicate here, and I go to ZRemesh. Let me just take a drink break here as it's ZRemeshing. And I usually keep it in like the default settings here. So obviously you guys know what ZRemesh does. Don't need to get that deep into it, but being that the topology is now much more workable, just redirecting the flow towards the forms that were there, I'm going to look at the original poly count, which is around 700K plus, and subdivide this new mesh of mine to match, if not exceed it. Roughly match, if not exceed it. And then I'm going to turn the original mesh visible so that I can project all. So project this back to the original Dynamesh object. And if you guys have any questions about something that may be a little foggy, just feel free. Take this time to drink. Oh, nope, did it. So now that we have that, I'm going to go ahead and delete the original mesh. Oof, sorry. And now what we have is a good mesh with a subdivisional hierarchy that I can go up and down from, and also a topology that I can work much better with. So, and that's essentially how I do my work, like the alien and all the stuff I've done for work and personal work. This is how I start things, and it's a very fast way of just, not falling in love with your object, just working until you get to a certain point that you're happy with. So let me just show you guys another model that I've done for Dreamdeck. Oop. So there was this mirror room experience, and each of these cherubs were done using the same method. Like each one of them were started from a sphere, as well as these organic Baroque ornate sidings. The frame itself was done in Maya, but each one of these were essentially just hand sculpting, down and dirty, and then once Kenneth was happy, just off to the game asset creation. This is the the alien mesh, the high-res maquette. So after, so I pretty much like say pretending that this was the sort of roughed out version without any of the detail. After Kenneth was happy with that, I pretty much went to town and still in rapid prototype thinking mode, just would add some of the sort of hand-placed details, some alpha maps, to start fleshing it out and kind of being more descriptive with it, while still trying to kind of focus on just strong readable forms, you know, flow, like what the id guys were talking about, just flow, trying to implement a lot of all that stuff in this model. So working on the alien actually informed our group, not just on the model side, but just broadly from model to animation to design. It informed a lot of us as to, in terms of what we were going to do next as a project, a big project for our group. Let's get this ugly guy out of the way here. So we all decided to work on this game called Farlands. This image here was painted by the amazing John Liberto, who's our awesome artist there at Oculus. And whereas the alien, oops, how come it's not there? Uh-oh. Okay. Whereas actually, let me just show you guys a trailer first before I move on.
The research opportunities here are endless. You won't want to miss a single day.
Oh, it's still chugging. So as you can see, the beautiful alien environments. Oops. So it's pretty much you're in this alien planet populated by these goofy-looking creatures, ranging from cute to goofy to sort of more kind of like dangerous-looking. So this guy again. So pretty much this guy, whereas this guy was a fairly passive experience, you know, for the viewers. It kind of just followed your eyes and waved at you, played pre-canned animations of it being curmudgeonly. Farlands essentially had to be a lot more interactive, pretty much. So the whole economy and style of Farlands as a game was it asked the viewers to gain the trust of the creatures. So there needed to be a lot of connection. So you know, it was definitely like the alien experience for Dreamdeck times, you know, times a lot. I don't know by how much, but you know, in terms of how much each creature had to do. So it was actually one of the most fun pre-production experiences I recall in a long time, in that, you know, our amazing concept artist Gabo Garza, hit the ground running before we all even started. He just started concepting just a lot of creatures. I mean, this is only half of the stuff he concepted. So I also went in there and joined in on the fun and started taking a lot of his concepts and started blocking them out in ZBrush. So I'll show you some of the quick stuff that I was doing. And you know, for these things, I gave myself about a day or a half a day to just kind of try and resolve the models based off of Gabo's artwork, while also trying to add a lot of my own design sensibilities. Because obviously, if you're working off of a 2D concept, you know, there's a lot of things you need to resolve in terms of, you know, well, how does this form turn, or how does this silhouette work under a different view? So it was really a fun challenge to just work via speed, because speed was necessary because, again, we really, and as an exercise in working, it's an exercise in trying not to fall too in love or trying to kind of look forward to, oh, I can't wait to detail this. I just needed to just get as much information as I can with this one and move on. So this one was supposed to be sort of a character similar to, in Princess Mononoke, the deer god from the forest, if you guys remember that. It's one of the rare creatures in the game that if you see it, something special happens or it's a special event. Something else here, the Talus, that's a very Miyazaki looking character here. And I tried to also just do a rough pass of poly paint on these guys too, just so that it looks like it's a 3D version of the concept that Gabo had done, that the game designers and everyone else can kind of look at and get a vibe of what the game feels like. So the Smud was a fun one. It's supposed to be this derpy-looking bird, but at a certain point, its fur gets eaten or wrong layer here. Gets eaten and then you just kind of see this thing running around without its fur. The actual model that made it into game was not the one, the design that made it. It was done by our awesome character artist, Sean Binder. This was just an early maquette that I had done for it, but just trying to capture a lot of things with it. Not, if you erase away wanting to capture the texture and the detail, which takes a lot of time, then you're left with something really tangible to play with, and just capturing form and flow, rhythm and all that, all those good sculptural terms. Just putting that in your head while working fast really does wonders. What is Hollow? Hollow is a fun one too. Sort of a. Of course, when I said not capturing detail, the next model has a lot of detail in it. This one was fun because I was referencing a lot of obviously frogs. So what I would do is Gabo would give me his concept, done sort of loose because of the time period, but I would take that and try to retain the character while still also referencing real stuff, like from Google Images, frogs, manatees, the way their skin kind of folds. So just having fun with it. I think the original concept was this thing's supposed to billow out and you see right through it, so it's just like a ring. So I put a little butthole there so that when it billowed out, it would, I'd have the geometry there essentially to have the hole, right? The last one here, I'm not going to take up too much time. So this was, again, the final model was done by Sean Binder. It looks different than this, but I had a lot of fun with this one because of the scale. Decided to put these two giffles there. So I wanted to see what an anteater would look like just in silhouette and somewhat of its anatomy, what it would look like if it was big or more kind of fused with an elephant. So just kind of having some play with some fun shapes here, just trying to be all gestural with how the tail kicks up and all that. So yeah. So essentially, because we didn't really have much time, only a handful really got picked. And these were the three that I built that ended up making in the game. Sean had also built some. So comparing it to the concept lineup, which were several, and thankfully we narrowed it down to just a handful because we were able to put in a lot more effort and work into the ones that made it in the game. So the Giffel, the Coloron, and the Wigwam. So these are the in-game models that Kenneth Scott had done renders from in Unreal 4. So just sort of like the cat-like creature. He asked me to. I did the design work for this one, referencing off of the Dreamdeck Moon Alien, but I referenced a lot to kind of add on to the creature. I looked at a lot of red pandas, just all things cute, like pretty much cute overload. Also, How to Train Your Dragon, Toothless, Lilo and Stitch, just looking at cute things, which was a change from what I usually look at. This is the Wigwam, sort of like a derpy bird. It kind of does this sort of thing where it asks you to play a mimic game with it. It's pretty cool, actually. So the Coloron, which is the most sort of human-like, relatable creature of Farlands, the most intelligent-looking one, that's for sure. This one actually is my personal favorite because it's essentially an orc or an ogre. It's a monkey-like creature that has a lot of detail information in it, and so I took a lot of relish in terms of creating this, and so this brings me to my next kind of topic, which is forms and readability in VR. So using strong, clean forms to sell believable character presence. It's something I alluded to earlier with the Alien in terms of trying to figure out what to put in the normal maps versus the topology. So let's go ahead and open up the stern here. Or the Coloron, I should say. It's the high res. It may take a while. Oh, okay, good. Okay, so just to show you guys the model a little bit more. So this is the high res sculpt. As you can tell, I had a lot of fun just kind of getting into the nooks and crannies, applying forms that shrink and compress and radiate. I used a mixture of mainly just sort of clay buildup, dam standard combination of applying these smaller details, but also eventually started using some alpha maps to break up the surface some more. So, wanted to talk about my process of looking at this after the high res is done and sculpted. I need then to capture all this information into a mesh that's much lower res that could run performant in a game engine in VR at 90 frames per second. So, what I learned. And the one thing I've come across is you need to put more in the topology, is what I find, and to decide what to put is a very important thing. So what I've decided was primary forms and secondary forms, having that be in the topology is very important. So, and what are the primary forms of this creature? So let me go to this layer here, which I've made specifically for this talk, by the way. It's not like I start every model like this going to the sort of organic final version. This is a just sort of like an illustration point that I wanted to show you guys of, okay, these are the important shapes that I decided needed to be captured. Let's toggle between the high res, zooming out just to kind of see see where it is as it relates to the organic version. So as you can see, it's the pectoralis, that hypersternum that he's got going there. Looking at the the lower arms here. I've obviously over-exaggerated it, given that the higher res is a little bit more blended in. But just the form breakups here. So I've decided to capture all that, as well as some of the important secondary shapes, like the rolls of fat on the chest area. Oops, sorry about that. It's this one. The roll of flesh at the back of the neck, the platysma strands, and now this is the topology. This is the game topology, I should say. So as you can see, I've put all of that information into the topology itself, just so I have the polygons to play with when it comes time to say, do the face shapes for this guy when the platysma is flexing, or when this thing is rigged by our awesome creature TDs, Scott Parrish and Matt Chapman. When they rig this, if they pose it at the back, arching its back, I can do a shape for them, smoothing this out, fanning it out, and then the inverse of that, inflating it out. So when it actually gets animated, the mixture of movements on the topology that kicks in from those joint-driven shapes will really sell the fact that this thing is flesh, underneath muscle, underneath bone, and in VR, nothing is more effective than that. That really is a huge part in trying to sell the illusion, right? And that's a very important thing. So for the face, put a lot of effort in putting in the topology for when the crow's feet happens, when it scrunches up the cheeks. So it's all in preparation for giving these guys expression, pretty much. So just checking up on my time here. Are we good on time, Paul? You're not Paul.
I'm the new Paul.
Are we good on time, new Paul?
We got some time. It's up to you.
Yeah.
We've got about 5 more minutes until you want to tell you to
Okay.
question. So
I'll fast forward. So facial shape creation in ZBrush. I'll just probably breeze through some of this so I can show you guys a ZBrush file. So pretty much in one of the biggest things I was able to take away from ILM was the facial shape creation aspect. Like I did a lot of work in creating facial shapes, studying facial shapes. And so to be able to do all that and bring it to Oculus on this project or whatever project was a big, exciting thing for me. So, so again, I spoke of connection before, and connection was really something that I latched on in my head while I was building the facial shapes for these guys, because that was the key word that I always kept and held strong to. So for the and I also wanted to design the facial shapes according to the creature personality. So with the Giffle, very cute, round, fluffy, I wanted the shapes to reflect all that. So this is the default round, fluffy. In my head, this thing was made out of cotton and, a plushie toy, essentially. So just lips out. Even the snarl shape, even though it has shark teeth for some reason, it still tried to make it appealing. And I didn't want to put anything grotesque, like hyper details and stuff like that. So for the smile, reference babies smiling, because what could be cuter than that? All in preparation for when it stood up and did this action towards you. I want you to just be able to just reach in there and just want to hug it. So again, connection, right? So for the Wibwam, it's I based a lot of it on like just really ancient-looking birds, like almost prehistoric-looking, like cassowaries, and I think this thing's the shoe-billed duckhorn. I don't know if is it? Yeah. So just based a lot of it on that. And so since the beak, obviously the mouth is not fleshy, I didn't have as much leeway in terms of giving it the full range of expressions like smile and all that stuff. So I compensated by redirecting all that around the surrounding flesh. So whenever I would do a blink shape or a smile shape, I would really drag all, I wasn't thinking localized. I'm just dragging flesh to simulate the feel of this as like, say this thing was made out of like the gullet of a chicken or a turkey, just wrapped around its entire body. That's what I felt this thing was, like loose, gnarly flesh, but its personality kind of made up for it, so you end up liking it anyway. So, just again, the drag of the flesh. Paying attention to form, what tightens and what sags. Very, very important thing. We could do a whole talk on that. There's a documentary I saw of this bird just herniating its chest, creating a loud thump. So I was like, hey, that'd be cool if this thing did it too. So the next one, the Coloron, based it a lot on like hairless bonobos in terms of the detail and the look. For the face shapes, I wanted to kind of tone it back from the wigwam. I wanted to kind of have more of a realistic set of shapes that behaved as it would if you were looking at a gorilla and all that stuff, stuff that looks like this thing. So let's go ahead and you can tell it's my favorite because it's the only one with a ZBrush file. So let's go to the face shape. So this is the base mesh. Let's go to layers. So essentially, when I make my face shapes, I use the layer system. So this is the blink shape. Obviously, there's an intersection because it's got a big set of eyeballs. So I made a halfway shape that kicks in at 0.5. So it looks like it's actually rotating around the eyeball. Brow corrugator. Let's just go through some of these. And as a character artist, this is the most gratifying part of the process for me. When I was growing up, 80s fanboy, always grew up loving the mechanical animatronics, and I've always wanted to be that, but since I missed the boat on that one, creating faces or face shapes has been sort of like my version of that, I guess, on my end. So the snarl shapes. So again, if you look, there's a lot of attention paid to motion and forms that gather girth or volume because things are being pressed on it. It's a very important aspect of this part of the process, is making use of the forms that you've already, placed in there. Snarl, or that's the snarl, lip out. So what I would often do is just shake it back and forth this way, just trying to find dead spots that I can pick up the dead spots and move it accordingly. So I'm always paying attention to the motion. There's more motion towards this way or heavier because if it's padded and more muscular, and as it gets towards the zygomatic bone, I want the feeling of sort of thinner kind of skin sliding on top of a bone. Not too happy with a smile. So yeah, just trying to get the fleshiness, looking at a lot of gorillas, my own face. I've always got a mirror in front of me. I must always look silly when I'm building face shapes. So this is the platysma. So reason why the topology is there is so that I can have the information of kicking that in, right? So for this shape, I would always look at myself in front of the mirror, and I remember when I was working on the Hulk, that's his signature thing. After I finished with that shape, it just hurt for like a week, because I guess it's not a muscle I usually flex for some reason. I don't know why. So yeah, and so once all of this is done, I bake out all those layers as OBJs, and the creature TDs take all of that in and incorporate it in the rig. They give it to the animators, and the animators, have fun with it. And the good thing about doing shapes that have a large range of motion in them is that once they overlap, it produces this nice organic movement on the face that's really hard to replicate if they were just very isolated. Nothing is ever really isolated on the face. Even a blink. If you look at a blink, put markers on whatever you need to do. Put markers around your eyes. Just look at how much motion of skin moves just by that simple action of the orbicularis muscle closing. So this is a... Sorry, it's a bit laggy here. It looks better if it's in real time. So just imagine this creature in front of you, face to face, in VR, as if it's really there. And that for me is one of the most exciting things, So in closing, there has never really been a more exciting time, in my humble opinion, for us content creators who are into this with the dawn of VR. Our creations now have an audience where they see our creations as if it's in front of them. And, that is a very exciting thought. So I'd like to thank Pixelogic and you guys for listening in.
Do you want to take any questions quick? You got about 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah, okay, well.
You got any?
Thank you.
All right, so we got any questions?
I'm going to stand up for the questions because I can't see you guys. I feel bad about that.
Okay, we got one back here.
Yeah. Oh, I made below the time I was supposed to make. That's good.
I was just wondering how you dealt with the eyes. Can you talk a little bit more how you deal with the eyes?
For the shapes?
For the shapes and for
Okay.
the connectivity in the
Okay.
VR.
I can actually, it's probably better if I demo it. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
All right. How convenient. Here it is. So for the eyes, and this is actually a good question because this is the shape I usually spend most of my time with. Only because, it's like the eyes are the windows to the soul and all that stuff. So, and there's many aspects to the blink. Obviously it's not just, okay, so I created a new layer here, just backtracking. And this is going to look ugly because, it's a demo. But, it's not just up and down action, the eyes. The orbicularis muscle creates this scissoring-like effect when it closes. So when it closes, it actually, let's paint this out for now. It closes at an angle this way. And the inverse of that, too, is the lower lid moves inwards. Let's pretend that's our shape right there. It's like droopy all of a sudden. Okay, anyway, so, but you see what I'm saying, though. It's, instead of it just being up and down, let's just do a version of up and down here. just that adjustment. And because, I learned this early on, like I was doing blinks that were, just sort of like just taking the edges of the upper and lower lid and just kind of, it's almost like a animation way of blinking, like Pac-Man. When I actually studied exactly what the eye muscles are doing, there's a lot of stuff in there. And so, and also when I do a shape, I work broadly first. It's almost like sculpting, primary, secondary, tertiary shapes. I work with the biggest, broadest motion and add the detailed, finer motion after that. So, when I'm happy with the action of the main primary motion of the blink, and I would look at it, it's not coming in enough, doing this, I'd start going into wireframe mode here and start paying attention to the drag of the flesh. And this is where the topology makes a lot of sense to turn on, because I'm kind of just constantly looking. Okay, so there should be more motion here. Ah, crap. There should be more motion here, and it kind of just should fade off as it goes upwards. And it should also start rolling around this bone here, So, and things should start smoothing. A tight crease may be lighter because of the stretching of the flesh, or the inverse of that would be, sorry, damn standard here. So the inverse of that is it could create a deeper pocket where things are compressing. And I pepper that on like probably in the secondary stage. So when it just becomes more of an organic, well, let's look at the actual blink.
So I got a question from the
Yeah.
Skype too here for you. So were you also responsible for morphing the alien, or was that done by the animation team?
By morphing, meaning making it move and animate?
I believe so, yes.
That's the animation team. So anything, I'm pretty much just responsible for sculpting the facial expressions, working with them closely to see what they need, and whenever it's moving, that's all them. Yeah.
We got any other questions?
Did that answer your question about the, okay.
Any questions from the audience here? We got time for like one more probably. Let's see, one hand up. Where'd it go? Do we have a hand? There we go.
So you talked about readability and
Sorry, I
shape
can't
lang-
hear you. I'm sorry.
So you talked about readability and shape language when designing for VR. Is
Yeah.
there any other things that you've noticed that are important to know when deciding for VR?
Sorry, it's kind of a,
So talking about the shape language and readability for VR, is there anything else that you'd find important to be, when using VR for readability?
oh, okay. Actually, when it comes to, where is it? Do I still have that file? I should. When it comes to the details, I've found, is it this one? Okay. At least whenever I'd start extracting the normal maps, I tend to make the details full, because whenever it's flat, it doesn't look as dimensional. So, for normal maps, this perfectly fits just fine, but I still want to kind of make them into like forms. It's just a continuation of forms. Like sometimes when we think of detail, it's just like surface relief. If you start thinking of it as forms, you start getting better results in the normal map. So when you're close to this guy and you start seeing the light shine on each of these smaller subforms, because they're small, it doesn't really matter. The normal map sells it. It's only when they're big that it doesn't. But when they're small, all the glints and all that stuff really sells that extra level of tangibility to these things. Because it's all about trying to sell the sculptural nature of something that's essentially a low-res mesh, right? So yeah, if that answers your question, and you know, I'm sure there's more. Like pretty much everything that I'm talking about here right now could be totally different 2 years from now. I mean, VR is we're in such an early stage of it still that everything I could be telling you about this could be different, you know, in a matter of just years, short years. So.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.